it's turned into this for this spring, right? So, so big differences. I guess the main difference being, the visual appeal of being able to kind of structure, these images. These images are still, go away, stop share, maybe, I don't know. What am I doing? Okay, good, all right. So they still exist as like,
you know what,
like this.
You
see how they
the screen sharing. Let me.
Oh, did I? Oh, shoot.
It's okay. It's easy to do. Let's see. Start. So yeah, it does put a little bit of extra junk up here.
So
which
how do we drop
that? Can you move this stuff out of the way?
Oh, there we go.
How about we put it down here with this stuff? It'll be less likely to get in your way.
Perfect.
Okay. And after I've done this 10 times, I'll know all those things and have it set up right.
So I think one LMS issue that's been bugging me is I haven't figured out how to solve this, right? Because here it is, right? And I just want it on the top of my my thing here, right? I just want that to appear there, break up that block, right? So each one of these blocks has a one of these kind of things, right, already set up. But it's just weird that it comes in as a link, and then the students are going to click that and they're going to say, "What the hell was that?" Right?
So you have to go in an extra layer for your summary.
Yeah, and all it is a visual cue, right? It's not there's hardly any content there.
And I agree that basically, like 80% of like the possible issue of like the appearance differences could kind of be solved with in modules view, allowing you to have one small picture and one small piece of text that would show up in line without having to be clicked on. That seems like something that would be a structural thing, because you can basically sort of create what you want by relying on pages instead of building your course. And there's some people build their courses using pages, and so that they can make it look however they want it to look, but then it doesn't do the same collapsible.
Right, which is the other functionality I love, right? So I love the rest of this functionality is great. It's perfect, really.
So it is a little bit frustrating that it's so close to...
Yeah, if I could just like get these gray areas to like hold an image, right? Would be perfect. It just is a thing that adds interest, and how I use it in class is a lot of times when I'm dealing with the class and I'm just scanning for an image, right? Because I remember what the image is, and then I go back here. Whereas this, is more like when I'm scrolling quickly through it, I lose the information, right?
It all starts to look like text.
Yeah, right, and then I have to start slowing down and actually reading each thing as I go down, right? So, so that's that's just a quick, what they're there for. They're just visual bookmarks that I use because oftentimes we're jumping around from topic to topic in the course, and I want to show them, oh yeah, I remember there's this thing on the Turing thing that I wanted to show them this video, right? So that's how, and I'm doing that. That's what I like about the iPad is I'm just scrolling up and hitting things, and it's very simple.
So when you present your course in class, you kind of use your iPad.
Yeah, that's my interface tool because I like it a lot, and a lot of times I've been dropping away from PowerPoint and moving to Prezi because Prezi I can really use the iPad. I can scroll in, I can draw, right? I can do all this stuff with my fingers. So it's more like a really cool whiteboard. Right?
And do you connect into the projector using your dongle, or do you?
Yeah, I use the. So in that room that you came to visit in that one, I just hook it into the podium, and then I can wheel that podium anywhere in the room too.
Yeah,
which is super cool.
Oh
so,
yeah, in that room you've got enough range that you could,
Yep.
so you can connect it to the podium, and then that podium moves around.
Yep.
So you could like use like an Apple TV,
Right.
like in another classroom,
Yep.
you could just plug in your Apple
Yep.
TV, and then you can be mobile, and
Yep.
you can create a little network between the two. So that would be
Yep.
another way to do that if you were in a less technologically advanced room.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for, because I'm really interested in these, in the new pedagogical method where you're flipping classrooms and doing a lot of group work and on the fly presentations. So I like to be able to move around the room and have the iPad as sort of the thing that I interface with them with.
Do you use Zoom at all? Like in
I haven't
class?
used Zoom yet, but I'm interested in it. I want to take a class on it and learn it. But I think that would be pretty useful.
Well, one of the things, just off the top of my head, that you could do, like Zoom has interesting features of the screen sharing. Right? So like different students could, if you were all in, even though you're all together in one room, you're all in a Zoom meeting, whoever is going to show their work, they can share their screen.
Right. Oh,
they can go up. Yeah. And the other interesting thing is you can also do breakout rooms in Zoom. I was in a class that an online course where it was a meeting basically, but like they had a topic they wanted us to all to discuss, and then it automatically pushed us into our different groups, and we were like, hello, and we were in our different groups, and then brought everybody back, which was it is I think it does change the way you can teach. It's interesting. So there were some things that you've only been in Canvas for 2 months.
Right.
Some tools like Zoom are available on either one. Are there any things that you want to, just off the top of your head, show me in your 2 classes?
So one thing that I noticed was different the other day that I had to get used to was here in this first thing, I've got all of their little PDFs that they need to do their projects and different things like that. So one thing I noticed that it did differently here was we have it grouped into, I think Bob did this. So this is kind of interesting. So it grouped it into a page with the links for each one. And then yesterday I changed this, and so I had to learn myself how to get this up here. So that took a little bit of time, but now I think I've figured it out. Right? I mean, the way this works, which is a little bit different than Moodle, is you've got to stack up all these files, and then when you come to these pages, you can, when you're editing them, you can start to link to various files. So that's just a different way of handling it, because I was used to this where if we turned editing on, if I had wanted to change that particular document, right, I just find it and erase it and pop a new one up, right? So it's a different set of commands, right, that you have to do in order to make that work. But what I do like about it is collecting, because this way I do this project has 3 distinct documents that need to be kept distinct because I change them sometimes I don't. So so this is nice because now it's right here, right, and so I can tell the students go here and you will see all the documents that you need. Whereas over here, they've got to be a little more skilled, and there's the white paper guidelines right here. So this is sort of how it appears in Moodle. So that was just a thing I learned yesterday and I kind of like the look of this, right? I mean, it just has a better look than Moodle. So some things are clearly nicer than Moodle, but it's just a matter of relearning like the same skill, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I could do this kind of stuff in my sleep, whereas this one I had to figure out just a slightly different way when you edit these.
In Moodle, those resources sort of have a different PDF
Right.
image.
Mm-hmm.
It's a PDF.
Yep.
How do you
Mm-hmm.
feel about that difference between the two?
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, I would prefer the icon because I don't know. I prefer it. I don't know if the students do. I don't know if the students care. But on these, I just moved to putting up docs. I usually don't like docs because I can re-edit them. I usually try to do PDFs. But in this instance, for some reason, I was using the docs. So you know, maybe I'll figure that out later. Did I misspell this?
While I'm here.
Guidelines. Might as well get it right.
Did you get a chance to do the online? Did you fill out the online survey?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that I plan on doing later today.
Okay. The when you do it, just make sure you go all the way to the end of it. That like really the first section of it is more of selecting. You know, how does Canvas do this function, and how does Moodle do this function, and how important is that to my job as a teacher?
Right.
And there's more clicking and selecting Likert scale type of stuff. There are a couple of questions that like, so they look at the grade book, and there's a couple of questions on there that I wanted people to have an opportunity to expand on if they wanted to talk about them. So one of them in question 7, which was working with the grade book, tell us about your experience working with the Canvas grade book.
Yeah,
have you been able to configure it the way that you want to your satisfaction, or is there anything you want to show?
Right. Yeah, let's definitely take a look at that now. Where am I? Yeah, so this would show, you know, Moodle, the grade book has never been one of my favorite things about it. So, so my grade books can often be a little complex. You know, they've got tons and tons of entries, and so there's a lot of scrolling involved, right? And also sometimes I screw up the when I do. Let's go take a look at that. What am I doing? You know, this setup screen. Sometimes I get this right, and sometimes I don't. Like I think in this one, I've got it right. You know, because I like to have you know, class participation is going to be 20%, and these things are part of that 20%, and these things are part of that 25, right? So that's that, and then course total 100. That's just the way I like to do it. It makes it easy for me to conceive of what's going on in the course. We do a lot of these reading reflection things, so they'll do some reading, and then they'll have to do some writing on it. So it looks a lot like this. So they will have, you know, submitted something. And I hate RTF because it does that. Let's find one that's not going to do that. There we go. This one should open up, right? No, it doesn't. So that is something I hate about Moodle, right? Is whenever they submit a file, right? Then it's just harder to deal with.
Could the students like submit that? Can they choose to submit it through like just text? But
they choose to do
a file, then you've got this. You've got to download the file and write it, and then re-upload it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if I look at an assignment here that they've done so far, so there's their version of that same assignment. So then the speed grader seems to work pretty well. So I like this, right? It just pops up. I can get my grade. I can go to the next one, right? So that's how it works so far. tells me when it's late, so I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been having a pretty decent experience with the speed grader.
What are the different views there? There's the paper view, and there's like if you click on that button that says paper view, does it have like a?
Oh, what are you talking about?
Right to the right, left, there, down.
Oh yeah, plain text view. Oh, I see. So it changes so they can, I guess this one they can choose a font or something. This is just everybody's stuck with that font.
But do people uploaded different files to get to this point? So people might have submitted a Word document, or they might have submitted a PDF, and this is an extraction.
Yeah, and that's nice, right? Because a lot of times what will happen in Moodle is they will upload a weird file that I can't even open. I can't remember which one that is, but especially on the iPad, like the iPad that's where it sucks. There's a lot of files it won't deal with. So I have to wait and get onto my office computer before I can grade those particular papers.
People submit things in other formats other than DocX or Google Docs. Do a lot of people, just send like a link to their Google Doc? Or
I have seen that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a majority in my class, but I have seen that.
I'd be curious to explore. Is that section down there that's like Google Drive,
right?
And there are collaborations.
Exactly right. I'm fascinated by these things. I haven't delved into them yet, but I do want to. So, and that seems like a little bit of something that's different than Moodle, right? I also like the fact that the rubrics are easy to get into, and I haven't created any, but since it's easy, I will definitely do that. At some point in the future, because that could make grading even faster.
Do you rely on other people grading at all, like TAs or?
I can, yeah, not in this particular class, but in I have a big online course that I teach in the summer and the winter that usually has 60, 70 students, and that I usually get a grader with as well, and they will do a lot of the grading. And that one I do have rubrics. I don't use either of these. I don't use Moodle or Canvas. I use Scholar for that particular class.
What do people do, like if the person had photographs in there or illustrations or drawings? How does that show up in there?
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet in this particular class, but I would assume that when you are from the student's point of view, that's interesting because I haven't spent a lot of time in the student's point of view, but I'm assuming they get the editing pad where you can insert pictures and different things. But I don't know if that's true.
So they upload a Word document. Does it parse out those images?
Yeah, I haven't tried that. I should try that, but I can't answer that. I don't know. I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so too. I mean, that's to me, like from a student perspective, I can totally see as a professor, this makes it streamlines that particular workflow of responding to all your stuff. You don't have to download it, grade it, upload it. Your comments are right there. You click through your assignments. I'm used to having control over I know fonts are silly things, but I do a lot of design stuff. I want it to look a certain way. I put energy thinking about which words are, if there's titles, the APA formatting. Does this bring in the APA formatting? It's like, we do that for School of Education. That's a major thing. We want all of our students to be able to be strong in presenting their work with the right formatting.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks to me like these are.
So it strips out the formatting.
Yeah, let's take a look at that again because I wasn't paying any attention to that. But let's check out that font, right? That person didn't do it. Yeah, these all look like the same font, don't they? Identical. Yeah. Yeah. So if any of these students had done any fancy formatting, I think it's probably gone by the time I get to this, right?
Or you could argue that this gets you down to the essence.
Oh, here's one. Look, this guy did something different. So this looks like I get whatever he wanted me to see, right? And then this has the text editor and different things. I don't see
tools to. He basically, it looks like maybe he uploaded it as a picture. It's like a JPEG or something.
Oh, I bet he did. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So I hadn't been paying any attention to that detail, but that's interesting. So it looks like most people don't go to that effort, and they are getting pretty much the same thing. But looks like a couple do, right? So this
person uploaded a PDF.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what happens. So the PDF will keep your formatting. Looks like anything else gets automatically gobbled up into whatever format it wants to.
This one's a docx too.
Oh well, maybe then if you upload a file. So let's go back. Let's find what somebody hasn't done that. That's another file. What's this one? Is this one? Maybe this is just what happens when you enter it on the screen and don't make a file of your own. Perhaps, right?
Yeah, because this one wasn't. Doesn't look like there's no file submission. It was just copied and pasted. I mean, I tend to copy and paste things in because I want people to have to do as few clicks as possible.
Right.
I don't want you to be in a position where you have to download it and do that thing. But it is interesting. You have different tools available to you,
right? Depending
on which one. I guess you still have the same adding the comments here, and you can attach a file,
right?
Or you can record a video.
Yeah, I like this. I just learned in the class last Friday. I might start using this. Sometimes I just don't feel like typing a huge comment, but I could definitely speak a very long comment.
Yeah, usually most people can speak more words per minute than they can write. Although that may not be what takes a long time. Thinking about what to say.
Yeah, but especially when I'm working on the iPad, like I hate the typing on an iPad. It sucks so much. But I would totally do this.
And you teach an online course in the summer.
Yeah.
So that type of feature, you think that's something that you might use more?
Oh, I will use that forever in the summer when I run this. Because I'm supposed to, as part of this project, I have to run it on Canvas this summer. My computer ethics class. And I will be using this like crazy. Because that's the one piece of the puzzle that I really dislike. I want to use Zoom and I want to use this kind of stuff because I have taught it for a number of years now, just completely text based, and that's one form of communication. But it's just these other forms of communication I think are important as well.
So let's. In that form that you fill out, at one point it forces you into a binary choice. It frames it in terms of which platform would you recommend for your colleagues and your students. Do you think they would most recommend? Where would you recommend for the academic senate that would be best for them?
Yeah, so at this point, like just thinking of my immediate colleagues, right, the colleagues in the philosophy department, the majority of them, I think, are going to very much prefer Canvas because they like, because the way I think Canvas works, like they don't care that much about all this visual cues and different things like that. They're going to be absolutely fine with that kind of course that Canvas automatically produces for you. That's going to fit their needs perfectly. They don't like monkeying around with technology. They're not interested in it. There is one person though, Josh, who really loves Moodle, right? And likes to monkey with it and get in there and figure stuff out. So he's not going to like the change just because he's already invested a number of hours into figuring out Moodle and getting it the way he wants it to work. So I think for about 90% of the faculty that I meet, I think Canvas is going to be clearly their choice. There are going to be a vocal 10% that are going to be quite angry, that have invested a lot in Moodle, and Moodle is also kind of its own philosophy, right? And has its own life world to it, and it's and I think that is attractive to a certain number of faculty, right? Because it's kind of a do-it-yourself.
Has a different history. Has it's probably one of the more successful crowdsourced, open source.
Exactly.
The university built it.
Yeah, and I think that's super important to pay attention to, especially as a philosophy professor. I think that's a really important piece of the Moodle allure, and so people who buy into that philosophy are going to look past Moodle's warts because they like where it comes from and it makes them feel better, right? And they don't feel like they're buying into some corporate culture or something, right? So I think that's something that the academic senate has to weigh strongly in their decision.
And how do they balance, do you think that Moodle, so a lot of those things are they're not just ideas, because that is the way that it was built, and passionate people at Berkeley and people that volunteered their coding time, that some of the promise of that, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of running, that's also the reason why it's hosted here.
Right.
And sometimes if you put in lots of different plugins that different people have, you might get instability, and do you think that is Moodle still delivering on the promise that open? That's not to be dismissive of the culture of where we go from and where we start, but that is one of the things that I see balanced. This is a commercial product made by a company that's publicly listed. At the same time, we're not all running Linux on our hand-built and machines. So there are different. In some ways, the people that built Moodle are the audience of Moodle. And so, do you have any words of wisdom about how to possibly message that towards those people, and to about how we should consider that in our recommendation to the academic senate?
Right. Yeah. Well, the way I describe it in my computer ethics class is that things like Linux, all this open source stuff, this is like it's similar to the people who are really into muscle cars, right? And like to tinker with their car in their garage, and that gives their life meaning. Other people just want to buy a Buick, right? And so I see Canvas as buying a Buick, and Moodle is, I want to tinker with this thing and make it as fast as possible, or as cool as possible, or paint it red. That's what Moodle's all about. So if we don't want to do that, right? I mean, we should understand that that's what we're doing. I think Moodle is successful on a campus that if you're going to buy a muscle car, you better have a garage and fully stocked with tools, right? And if you just buy a muscle car and you don't have the skill as a mechanic and you don't have the tools to fix it, it sits in your driveway as a piece of garbage, right? And I think Moodle operates that way as well. We've only got a few people that monkey with it day in and day out, right? I think at San Francisco State, when I went there a couple of years ago and they showed us their Moodle implementation, they had a whole room with 14 programmers, right, working on this thing, and they had their own grade book and they had their own branding on all this stuff. It's Moodle at San Francisco State is San Francisco State's Moodle, and it's pretty cool. But if Sonoma State doesn't want to do that, then why did we buy a muscle car, right?
That's I think it's an interesting, and it's hard to know because we've, in some ways, our study, my research is a little biased towards the muscle car builders because we invited, or I don't know exactly how the selection process, but we wanted people that really vigorously use the LMS to really be able to have a good sense of what's really going on, and people that care are very passionate about those. So that is something that somehow we have to keep in mind too. We don't want the muscle car community making car purchase decisions for the Honda Civic public.
Right, exactly, right. Precisely right, yeah.
And it is very difficult. There's all these gray zones, even when you look at the way Canvas, when it gets implemented in other places, a place like UC Berkeley, you kind of buy it with a turnkey thought that I'm not going to have to do all this customization. And then a couple of years into it, you're saying, well, actually, I need to have these functions. And so you end up starting to build them. It's still something that, so there's some sense that some faculty have, and every platform is going to have its detractors, that some people have felt like Moodle doesn't really meet their needs. Exactly. And so do you feel like what would be the best way, that would the cost of getting the expertise and the support towards Moodle meeting people's needs, would that be something that, if we do decide to go to the cloud-based version of Moodle, I think we need to put a lot of energy, more energy towards getting that to work for everybody on campus.
Yeah, so if we decide not to go for Canvas and we wanted to stick with Moodle, I think I would, my vote would be for a more cloud-based Moodle, so that you can, I don't know, are we going to be able to satisfy those constituencies, right? The people who just want to turn it on and have already solved most of their problems, plus the people that really want to, drop the suspension and change out the wheels and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think there's more, like, how much Moodle support do you think we would need to help build a system where people could use Moodle more in the way that Canvas is sort of set out of the box to do? Would that be like twice as many people in the faculty center?
Oh, easily, right? I mean, I think we've done a reasonably good job, right? Because I think that since the faculty center started, Moodle's been a lot easier to use, and there's people that can come in and talk to and get some help when you run into a problem. So I think that's a lot better, but I think it's not done. We need to continue that. Probably would need to double the size of what we have in order to meet everybody's need.
The same way that Canvas might. And it's very difficult to really gauge that the positives and negatives and where it all balances out. So you feel like on the balance right now that Canvas has a better shot of meeting more people's needs across the faculty and raising the general bar
absolutely
of LMS usage.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a little more idiot proof, and I think that's what people need. And I mean, I've already seen it with some of the people that are on the LMS project. They're already, at least to me, like Kathy is an example of a power user, right? And she's like, well, Canvas is okay, but I prefer Moodle. But some of the other people are like, oh, this is so much easier. Right? This is, it made my class so much better, and I use it more. Like a lot of people have Moodle and they don't even use it, right? It's too intimidating for them. And a lot of people in my department are that way. They barely use it, maybe for an announcement here or there, but they're not doing anything with the.
So you do think that Canvas is a little more approachable,
Mhm.
and it would be more likely to get increased adoption
Yeah. Mhm.
at Sonoma State campus? Because I
Right.
think that's an important side of things that
Mhm.
I've heard some people say. You
Mhm.
still have to learn a system,
Right. Mhm.
you know? And
Mhm.
so if you weren't going to learn Moodle, are you really going to? But you do feel,
Mhm.
it sounds like,
Mhm.
that the difference isn't insignificant. That
Mhm.
it is a little bit more approachable, a little easier to get
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
basic course up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I could teach everybody in my department already how to just set up a basic core course to the level that they want,
Mm.
you know, with a few forums, a few assignments, and you know, a basic structure of modules, and places to put their readings, right? That's all they really want.
Uh-huh.
They're not going to be doing Zoom or any of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the things that I see is the challenge is that the people that benefit the most
Mhm.
might be the lighter users.
Right.
So the people that are the enthusiast community
Right.
are the people that are going to have
Mhm.
more pain points.
Right.
And they are, you know, active and
Mhm.
vocal and
Yep.
passionate
Mhm.
users. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard because sometimes those people can drive
Mhm.
usage on campus.
Right.
Or, you know,
Yeah, that's right. Mhm.
and also how you fairly
Mhm.
and most effectively
Mhm.
raise the general usage. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be a key argument that for the vocal critics is the key argument is going to be somehow to show this many more people are going to adopt the system who feel really shut out by Moodle at this point in time.
And that's possibly people who feel sort of shut out by Moodle
Mhm.
it's a good point. And if we do a little bit more, you know, everything happens on a very compressed time schedules.
Right. Mhm.
If I had 1,000 years,
Right.
I'd really be able to answer this. I'm not Bob Mueller, okay?
Right. Yep.
I'm just Joel in the faculty center.
Well,
But my investigation is sprawling, but I am interested in, there's this conception of the people that are maybe shut out or that didn't really, you know, those people aren't super engaged. They're not the people who show up at the faculty center. So they're not, or we don't have close relationships with them. And so that makes it, we can point to adoption data at other universities.
Right.
A lot of that information comes from campus,
right, that's
so
good.
It's a little bit harder to gauge.
Right,
Like
yeah.
Justin's got connections at a lot of universities, so
Good.
that is a good question of you know, getting those people that have felt shut out, you know, in the sense of what their likely adoption would be. But it is a little bit fuzzy. I mean, I do know that, like, I don't know how many professors are both adjunct to the JC here too, but
we've got a lot, right?
how useful do you think it is for people to be able to bring their material back and forth between the two campuses?
Yeah, so useful. So, because we have a lot of people that teach critical thinking here in the JC, it's the same class, and it would be really nice for them to just port this stuff back and forth. And they're already very sold on Canvas because they work at the JC, and so that's a very important constituency to think about. We have a lot of them.
Do you have any people that you know that are teaching the same course or that are teaching in both places that would have a good sense? Because we might reach out to
talk to Dwayne Mulder in my department because he teaches in both places.
Okay.
And has done it for a long time.
I don't have any legitimate pens. I'm going to borrow an illegitimate pen. So it's Dwayne Mulder. Okay. So this is, we're going to move on to the next section, as much as it pains me, because that one's the big one. But
let me just add one thing before we change topic.
Sure.
And that is, we should learn from the last LMS change when we went from Blackboard to Moodle. And I was part of that discussion as well. and I think that happened really too quick and too fast. So kind of Brent Christie was, there wasn't a faculty center then, but he was the faculty member that was doing instructional technology, and he got excited about it. Babs got excited about it, right? And then I think they sold it to the provost by saying, look, it's essentially free, right? And so the provost at the time was like, well, of course.
Yeah, free sounds good.
Right. And I think that's about as deep as the conversation ever got, right? And so I know a lot of people were really angry because Blackboard was more like Canvas, right? It was more of a preset LMS, and then we moved to this Moodle, and it was a big shakeup. So I think we are doing better this time, but we should definitely go deep, right, and not just make a snap judgment that we're stuck with for 14 years.
What do you think about like the period of transition? Do you think that like giving people a year to migrate over, or how long of a transition do you think, or do you think that for students it'll be like, I have a bunch of students complain, I go to my dashboard for, can't you make a link in Moodle that takes me to my Canvas course?
I think faculty will want 20 years to migrate, but students, for the students' sake, it should be a pretty fast one, maybe a semester.
Semester where both platforms are kind of adopted on campus.
Because they're going to go nuts, because some of their professors are going to be on Moodle, some are going to be on Canvas, and that semester is going to be hard for them. So we should flip at some point. And then maybe there's a way, like I use I've used Scholar, right? And that's not done officially through the university at all, right? So maybe there's a way that people who really love Moodle can still use Moodle if they want to.
We'll give you a file that'll teach you how to download it and host your own server.
Exactly.
You'll have no problems. Your own muscle car.
Yeah, I think some people will be totally into that because that's like their hobby.
Yeah.
But,
and you don't want to discourage the most engaged users.
Right.
And that's so the more you prescribe and standardize, has the potential of having some downsides to it.
Right.
And that's one of the things, how much Canvas sort of pre-formats things and maybe saves you from yourself versus how much does it constrict your freedom of expression.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And you use things like the pictures as a guide for where you are. It is, that does seem like kind of an important usability thing too.
Right.
It's not the end all and be all, but that could be. So this is question 17. So this is the second section 2. I'll go a little bit faster because a lot of these things we did touch on in that first overall looking at, but the ease of use of Canvas, just regarding ease of use, what's your sense of Canvas, your experience with Canvas this semester at Sonoma State?
Oh, I think it's pretty easy. I think my problems are getting like I know what I want to do in Moodle, and then I don't know particularly the click stream to make that happen in Canvas. So it's been a little bit of trying to relearn things. But I think if I put myself in the mind of somebody that's just going to Canvas for the first time, pretty simple. It's not a difficult thing.
Unlearning what you know about Moodle is the hardest part in some ways, but for people that are less experienced, new students, new faculty, it'll be pretty accessible.
Easy,
migration experience, just tell me one more time about how you built your course. Did you build it from scratch, or did you
this one I ported entirely from Moodle, which was fine. Everything came over. It came over weird, like I showed you, but everything came over. And for the most part, it functions very well. And except for the books, right? I lost all the books, but I didn't use those very heavily anyway. But I think people who have kind of built their whole course on books. I remember going to classes on Moodle a few years ago where they're just like, to build your whole course on books because it's super awesome. And so anybody who followed that advice is going to be angry.
And those are, if you're doing something equivalent in are they basically a series of pages?
Yeah.
And then you can
That
kind
are
of like
sequential.
have arrows that you can kind of click through. And are they much different than like what you would do in a PowerPoint slideshow, or is it kind of similar?
It's similar. Yeah, it's a similar thing, except that you might have an embedded quiz or embedded video, right? It's pretty neat, because you can say, here's our lesson. Like instead of the way I do it, I have this long list of links, right? You can clean all that up with a book because you just go, this is our lesson, right? Click, and it takes you through pages, and then you can stop the students. Like, don't go any further unless you can get this quiz 100%. Now I do. Okay, so now I go to the next portion of the lesson. It's pretty cool. It definitely is a neat thing. I have used it. I don't use it a lot, so I've only used it in one course. So I'll have to refigure that out. But I think there's ways in Canvas to redo it. But it is going to be a matter of when at some point you're going to have to grab your material here and go over here and paste it and go back. It's going to be that kind of a long afternoon worth of rebuilding a course,
reconstructing. Trying to reconstruct it in the thinking about the way that Canvas wants you to present that material. And that's one of the difficult things. And you're used to all the different features of what you can do in one platform. If they don't map over quite right, then because there's some people that built their courses more around pages,
right?
And so you can choose what you're showing and what you're not showing,
right?
And so you did do some cleanup, but it was manageable. It wasn't. So you didn't feel like after you finished that you're like, I wish I had just started from scratch. You were okay with the migration
so
experience?
far no problems. I think when we look at see if I can get out of this. That's interesting. How do I just get out of this and back to the course? Maybe this way. Yeah, here we go. So when we come to this, I know Bob and I spent a little bit of time like trying to figure out like whether pages would be better. So we were starting to change these into these pages. I never published them because I don't think that that's necessary. So so I haven't completely thought that through yet. Mostly I've been going by inertia, and this is what Canvas gave me, and I don't have time to dork around with it. So maybe I would, right? If I had a summer to rework a course, I might start doing that. But oftentimes you don't, right? We just the summer. I mean, summer's over fast, and you've got to get your courses ready. And I think most people are just going to transfer whatever they have on Moodle straight over. And I didn't find it a horrible process. It's pretty simple, really.
That sounds good. So your overall impression of Canvas to this point, what would you say? Got that, but
yeah. I think it's I think it's a really good commercial product, and it's going to be a harder one to rework, right? There's probably a lot of proprietary things, right, where you're not going to be able to do what you could have done with Moodle. I don't think we were necessarily doing that with Moodle anyway, right? I don't think we were doing ground up re-implementations of Moodle to fit our needs. We don't have the manpower or women power to do that. So,
and you have seen that at other institutions
Right.
that so Moodle in some ways we're more using it like an out-of-the-box solution.
Yeah, we are currently using Moodle as an out-of-the-box solution, and it's not necessarily meant for that, right? It's not. That's not its strength. Its strength is you can get in there and get your hands dirty, right down to the source code.
Yeah, and and so it's but so in terms of the like you feel okay using a commercial product that doesn't, there might be some benefits to having a company that's that's beholden to stockholders as opposed to you know, more of a do-it-yourself for this type of platform.
Yeah, I do. I'm torn because I totally understand what motivates Moodle, right? And I back that up. But I also realize that you know, Sonoma State doesn't necessarily have the chops to back that up the way it ought to be, right? So we want kind of an anti-corporate thing, but we don't want to pay the money and hire the people to actually do the work, right? So I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by trying to float on a leaky boat, and nobody expected you to float on that boat. They expected you to fix the boat before you put it on the water, but we don't.
Yeah, I can see. Somebody mentioned, which never occurred to me, the concept of like, well, we could have our, you know, let's use Moodle and like have our build it into our curriculum of having our computer science students.
Oh, right. Yeah, that'd be great. Tech support 101.
But then I was sitting there thinking, like, when they start building modules that get plugins that get put into Moodle, if the whole thing goes down, there's it's difficult to do the beta testing. I guess we can just blame students.
That's right. Well, I think that would work, assuming, let's say you're Carnegie Mellon, right? And you've got a shit-hot computer science department. You've got graduate students who are going to be the next leaders of the tech, you know, revolution. Yeah, they can totally do that, right? But is that Sonoma State, right? At the undergraduate level, could we really get undergraduate students to produce plugins that are going to be flawless the way they need to be?
And testing and stuff like that. So it might be more of just an issue of like how strong our graduate programs are right now, that it's probably an unreasonable expectation that particularly when everybody else's grade and academic experience is relying on the integration with the learning management system that that you might need stronger grad program.
Yeah. Well, is the School of Business, right, or nursing, look at nursing power user of LMS, right? Do they want to rely on, you know, amateurs, right? Their whole program could wind up getting unaccredited, right, based on some dumb thing that they tried out, right?
And I don't think they have the bandwidth to start reprogramming the LMS themselves.
Right.
You know, that when you do work on large projects, that all of that testing and the beta testing and getting figuring out the bugs and the interactions between all of those things, it is it's a daunting before you commercially release things. There is you have to be able to stand behind it, and I understand, the concept of experimentation and when do you want to bring in the people who've been working as engineers for many years to solve those problems. But so maybe there is a more experimental, I mean, it is a good question, and maybe there is a place in academic technology where our more those types of programming and computer science efforts have a place on campus, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not in the LMS.
Right. Yeah. Or I'm in my mind, I'm kind of really in favor of having the muscle car option for computer science and people that want to go down that path. Maybe engineering does too. But we also need an out of the box solution that something like business or nursing just we want this stuff to work and we don't want to monkey with it, right? And it's fair for them to ask for that, because it's like it's become the equivalent of the classroom and the blackboard, and just all you want to walk into a classroom and you just want the classroom to work. You don't want to have to go build your own blackboard and invent chalk.
Yeah. It's okay to have some tools that are common and understood.
Right.
What do you see as like the biggest strengths of Canvas?
Yeah, I think the biggest strengths is the tech support. Seems pretty good. I like the fact that the company has that 24-hour tech support line. I think that students are going to get, once they figure that out, that they can access that. That's going to be a huge game changer for them. That's currently not something like here. It's sort of business hours, right?
Did your students take advantage of that at all? And
a couple of them have, and I've been trying to push more to do it, right, rather than. Right, because here's one thing that drives me nuts about Moodle is, as oftentimes I have to act as tech support, which I don't want to, because I've got other things going on. So I hate getting the email at 11:30 at night that says I can't get my homework in because I can't figure out Moodle, right? So I don't want to answer any of those emails. And it would be so great if and at the beginning of class I said, anytime you're having trouble, can't get something to upload or whatever, just call this number, right? And they'll help you through. That would be a big weight off my shoulders.
So currently, faculty is kind of the front line of tech support.
Yeah.
Really. And there are particular types of issues that sometimes get booted over to IT help desk.
Right. When they're open.
And that could be something that, could change one way or another. If they have to support, like Moodle doesn't have like a tech support service like Canvas does.
Right. That's right.
So if we go the Moodle route, we have to probably.
We need to put that on the table, right? This is what you're giving up is the tech support, which is real.
And that it does affect the faculty. At 11 o'clock. You're the person who gets that email. And so trying to offload that, and what is the cost of that over the course of a semester? How many?
About 8 emails, right? Late night panicked emails.
Late night. There's an emotional cost to it. That it's not calm, and that is sort of the nature of tech support. Is people are doing work and having a problem at a moment that is, a emotionally difficult problem, and so the professor saving the professor some of that customer service work and funneling it into a better place for that's not necessarily the best use of your time.
Right. I had a string of emails from a kid a number of years ago, and the first one's at 10:30, and I just wasn't on the email at night. Right. He said, I got this problem. I can't get my lesson, to upload, and then I get another one, a half hour later. These go all night, right? And so by 1:30 a.m., so this is like the 10th email he sent me that I haven't answered at all. I can't wait up for you anymore.
Good night.
Yep. So I think the students have this understanding that we're like waiting, right, to help them all night long.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is a cultural shift of expectations. At
Mhm.
least that's what a lot of customer
Mhm.
and people that look at generational
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
and I know that faculty are sort of always on. It's
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
lifetime gig. You're not
Mhm.
punching a clock, but
Right.
some of
Mhm.
those boundaries that have
Mhm.
traditionally been there, of like I
Mhm.
have my work hat on
Yep.
and I have my life
Mhm.
hat on,
Yeah.
that those students don't see those,
Right.
and millennials apparently don't see those boundaries in the same way. It's all one
Yeah.
life to live.
That's for sure. Yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
and so you think that this might be able to help the faculty
Mhm.
protect some of those
Absolutely. Yeah.
work-life
Yeah.
balances.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I think that, to me, that's one of the stars in favor of Canvas is a professional tech support that we don't have to deal with,
mhm,
right? For anything that's just all about this, they can go someplace and get that fixed.
How much of the tech support problem, since you're one of the big,
Mhm.
the top techs
Mhm.
as a faculty member at the university, off the top of your head, how much of those problems are the students like personal software,
Mhm.
internet connection,
Mhm.
user error, of how much of it is related to quirks in the LMS system that is
Yeah.
genuinely
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
IT center versus
Mhm.
a Moodle
Right.
question
Mhm.
or an LMS question? Do you have any
Mhm.
sense of like where those generally fall?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times it's it has to do with them using some kind of weird browser, right? And that or some security feature that they've added to their computer, which doesn't play well with the file transfers and that sort of stuff. So I think that's a good 80% of why it might break. Then there's also the just every once in a while our server goes down, right? So when that happens in the middle of sometimes I'll have a midterm, right, that starts at 9 in the morning and I'll give them till midnight, right,
Mhm,
and then they don't start it till 11, and
mhm,
then the server goes down. So
mhm,
there's that disaster, right? Which doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's 20 emails, super panicked
mhm,
people, right? Um,
mhm,
so uh, so that happens. It's rare, but when it does, it's like a plane crash. Um, and then a lot of times it's also just the students are not taking the time to learn how to use the system. So there's a lot of questions that get emailed to me that are just real basic stuff, right? Um, I don't see where the file is, and then you have to say, well, do you see this thing? It's right here.
mhm,
Click that. Oh, now I see
mhm.
it. Right.
And so some of those are probably
Mm-hmm.
not going to be solvable by
Mm-hmm.
anybody
Right.
except somebody that has access to the course
Right.
and can go
Yep.
through as the
Yep.
student and
Right.
say,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it is right there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
Mhm.
and so that's yeah, but that's good to know that probably. So it kind of sounds like 80%, 75%. So this is a
Mhm.
question. I don't know how well Canvas is, what their 24/7 helpline
Mhm.
is like
Mhm.
when they get the sense that it's an issue of like, you've got pop-ups on your computer.
Mhm.
Have you, like, is
Mhm.
that a
Mhm.
Canvas issue, or is
Right.
it,
Mhm.
a,
Yeah.
how
Mhm.
generous are they with their
Right.
time
Mhm.
helping students resolve
Mhm.
problems that are probably their configuration,
Right.
and
Exactly. Yeah.
browser
Mhm.
issues like that. So
Mhm.
that'd be an interesting question. Probably be hard
Mhm.
to get a straight answer on.
Right. Mhm.
But the
Yeah, we might want to just have them explain to us exactly what they mean by tech support, right?
mm,
Just so we can make a good decision.
mhm. And
Mhm.
probably Justin has a good sense of
Mhm.
what that package really is and
Right.
what the likelihood
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
What about the biggest difficulties of
Mhm.
Canvas that you see? What do you see as the biggest challenge of teaching with Canvas?
Well, the one that everybody's complaining about is being able to type in structure.
Spelling.
Yeah. So it took me a good 2 weeks to get everybody in the class into because they would run into they mistype it or whatever, and they get frustrated and they just stop, and then they show up next week and have you done the homework? No, I can't even get on the site. Right? So for me, the takeoff was very rough.
Yeah, I've seen students in that first P1 survey, complaining about having to go back to the email where the professor eventually sent the link. They don't seem to know how to set a bookmark bar.
No,
And so there are some, you get the sense that some of those problems will go away.
Right. I think they will.
Once we get adopted and people get into their workflow. And that maybe there is some need for students, talking with people that do exclusively online education. They do a lot more orientation.
Right. I think we don't do enough of that. Right.
Maybe there's some orientation towards, these are 3 computer skills you need to be able to do.
Right.
It'll save you time, one way or the other, or whichever system we work to. That's some sort of training of students is probably.
Yeah, I think that would really help. And then the probably the next biggest thing is not a problem with the system, but just my ability to have time to dig into some of this stuff that looks really cool that I haven't just used yet. So open functionality that I haven't quite figured out. I'm lucky enough to be on that project, so every week we seem to be doing a little bit more, right? And learning more about that. But I don't know if that's going to be available to everybody, right? When we roll this out across campus, there's no way they're going to be able to afford giving everybody the 10-week course on figuring all this stuff out.
What's that? Mac projects?
So that's it's one of the ones Justin was, and there's 12 of us, about 12 of us in it, and they hired a person who's used Canvas a lot, and so she's teaching us both Moodle and Canvas, right? It's really cool. I'm now learning some stuff about Moodle I never knew before, just in time for us to dump it. But it's good, right? Because either way, right? If we go to Moodle or Canvas, I've learned some new skills. It's going to really increase my capacity to use the system. So there's just with any LMS, there's always lots of possibilities, and you can get lost in those possibilities unless you've taken a course on them. So you might want to have me.
Is that an in-person course, or is
that's an in-person course? But I don't see why it couldn't also be an online course.
I think there are like webinars and stuff that are offered, and that one's a regular meets once a week for 10 weeks, or something like that.
Yeah, that's whole semester. Right?
And were you able, in the end, to recreate the workflows that you relied on in Moodle? And like that was, so you've pretty much been able to do the things that you're asked of Moodle to do?
Yeah.
Did you notice any features or issues that might affect individuals with disabilities who are accessing coursework in Canvas?
Right. So far, I believe Moodle and Canvas are about the same on that. I do have a few students in class that have accommodations. I've always been able to accommodate them on Moodle, and I have not had any trouble accommodating them on this platform.
More like time accommodation?
It's always a time, yeah. So I haven't had like a blind student or anybody like with severely impaired learning. So I don't know about that. Right? I wouldn't be the right person to completely ask on that, but I do know people with dyslexia, people that read slower, right? That's one of the main reasons why I spend so much time on Moodle and now Canvas, is because it's to help those students, right? So that it's not just, all my lecture notes and everything wind up here, so that they have more time with them. It's not like the past where I just, did a lecture and expected everybody to write down notes and walked out of the room. This is much better, because now I do that lecture, but they also have my slides. They also have my notes.
And what are your notes in that?
They can be like lecture notes or any of these files, right? Like I have them in most of my modules.
So it's kind of like what you built your lecture out of. Might tie together those 3 files. But those are kind of the things that you were referencing. And are those things mostly things that you've written, or are they things that?
No, well, they can be. My computer ethics class is the most extensive one that I've done that on, and that has just gigantic chunks of text that I wrote and put up there. That class is awesome, but it's mostly awesome because I was hired by O'Reilly over in Sebastopol to write it. So they gave me $12,000 to write the damn thing. So I basically wrote it like a book, right? And I put a lot of effort into it because I was paid to put a lot of effort into it. You don't get extra pay here to put the effort in the course, so it's more catch as catch can.
I guess that kind of raises a question I haven't thought about. Like, is there a way to incentivize, there's smaller incentives that could improve the way we use the LMS for everybody?
Oh, absolutely, right. I think that, and we do a little bit of that, right? And I just think we need to do more. If we want exemplary online, exemplary use of the LMS, then you got to incentivize people to put that effort in. Otherwise, you're going to get the lowest common denominator. Even me, right, who wants to put a lot of work into it, if I feel pressed or I don't have the time, my efforts move to areas where I am incentivized, right? And so it's just natural.
Yeah. If they transition, do you have any thoughts of what types of, and you're sort of touching on that, like the course that you have, like what types of support, training, information would best support your colleagues to make a smooth transition?
Yeah, so I think what would be great is continuing this kind of training. And one thing I would really like to see different is training for specific types of courses. So currently, when we go in, right, these could be people from all different schools, right, and teaching a math course is just different than teaching an English or a philosophy course. Teaching an English and a philosophy course are very identical, right? So the kind of things that they're going to spend 90% of their time on are things that we're going to spend maybe 5% of our time on, and vice versa, right? So I think by school, people are going to be interested in different grades of these, various functions that are available, right? So people like philosophy and English, we want to use LMS to create high quality writing. We want writing that's going to be peer reviewed, multiple drafts, and turn in multiple times, right? That's just that's a different kind of workflow than maybe in science, where you just want to solve a bunch of math equations, right? Which is a whole different world, and we never do that over here, right?
So some of the discipline-specific best practices for different LMSs, or seeing some exemplars of the way that pedagogy of that particular discipline might be addressed in the LMS.
Right.
And and so thinking about, there was somebody sort of recommended having different people in the faculty center that sort of focus on particular disciplines.
Sure,
And
I could see that could be useful. Yeah,
you would sort of need a long-term plan if you're hoping that people build certain expertise and really,
right.
you know, are aware of the ins and outs of particular types of courses that you have.
Well, it's like the library, right? Every school has its own librarian, and that's important, right? Because they can't do. It's hard for them to switch, right? You have to specialize in servicing different schools.
Yeah, and maybe you could do some, like you're saying, I remember as a student at School of Education, I felt like there was a huge variety in the way that professors used it, and also just in terms of like organizing resources that you want to take with you,
right?
As I've thought about these philosophers once.
Right.
I would really like to have a library of PDFs that were written by these philosophers that are still organized across my classes in a way where I can see what are the most interesting things that Dewey had to say.
Right.
And now here I am in that in another class, and I would like that library to kind of, and maybe there are ways to use the LMS in the School of Education that could be helpful across instead of reinventing.
Did you see, this is one, I don't know if I can get to it, but I don't see it here. But the Dean of Arts and Humanities hired Josh and I at one point, here it is, to do this course, which is, the idea is good. I don't know if it gets as much uptake as it should, but basically what we did here was create a whole set of ready-made modules for anybody that's teaching critical thinking curriculum. So, and then this one isn't a course that any students are ever enrolled in, but the clunky thing is, and the reason it doesn't get used as much as it should is every semester we have to create a course and put all the teachers who are teaching critical thinking content into it, right? And sometimes people forget to do that, and it's hard to use for that reason. But it's a great resource, and something like that.
Each professor that teaches critical thinking, I'm sure they bring something to the table.
Right. And they can upload stuff to it. And it's supposed to grow, right? And that's the whole idea, right?
And I know that our best intentions don't always end up fulfilling our dreams of how they the ultimate course. But I am interested, and it does seem like the university sometimes has a lot of exceptional work that happens in little pockets and nobody,
Right.
And the old way that courses were taught in, you print out your reader at the copy shop and stuff. Not only does it seem like it might violate all kinds of rights usage and things like that, but additionally, it's all water under the bridge. Once it's done, it's done. And so it would be nice if we could institutionally build our knowledge. And I don't know whether the Moodle versus the Canvas will have more ability to do that, but that seems so. How
doesn't Canvas have?
There are those
courses, right?
The commons,
commons. So that was cool. So I was thinking of, we take this and we put it out to these commons somehow. Might be a solution.
Right. Never mind like institutional sharing across. You're not the only people thinking about critical thinking in the United States or the world.
That's right.
And so, and maybe instead of that communal energy of Moodle that goes into trying to build a perfect platform, maybe it can be some of that similar type of energy can be built towards working together to build better courses in how we contribute our and I do think there is some bias towards the Canvas supplies tools for discussing and thinking about ideas and things that are expressed well verbally or
Right.
in a written form,
Mhm.
that it becomes more what you think about, like how does it interchange like with expressing ideas about programming,
Right.
or about
Mhm.
art,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
about mathematics, or
Mhm.
and there's a lot of room to grow. A lot of our disciplines
Mhm.
are sort of underserved compared to
Right.
the
Mhm.
language of ideas,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
there is room for figuring out how to serve those needs, and
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
different disciplines, how they interact differently with an LMS system.
Right. Mhm.
I think that's a big issue that
Mhm.
is probably won't be able to solve all of the problems
Right.
of the world with this Canvas pilot. But and so you were a part of that 2008 when you did that. Are there, as somebody who's been through that transition before and this transition, what were some of the, and of course it's difficult as the world's always changing,
Right.
and the state of the art of the LMSs is different. There's
Right.
been a lot of convergent evolution of different things, but like, so your big takeaway was to not be as immediate.
Right.
And with that one, you just kind of ended up flipping the switch. Like one semester you were on Blackboard, the next one, boom, you were on Moodle. So you're thinking maybe one semester of transition if you go
a little softer landing.
a little bit softer landing. Are there any other things, big takeaways from that research that you did? Because I know that it exists in binders, that there's like, but I don't know if there's like an overall sense of what wisdom was gained in that.
Yeah, so I think the big motivating factor for the change was to try to gain more direct faculty control of the LMS, which I was very in favor of at the time. Having seen it for 8 years, I think that's a commitment that that I don't think we are actually ready for, right? So I think that required us to put our time where our mouth was, and I don't think anybody was ready for that, because time is also a resource, right? So it was free, but it costs time, right? And from the administration's point of view, that's great. It's just the faculty's time. Go for it. But the faculty, turns out, we're already pretty overbooked, right?
Yeah.
And then to also try to develop software, I don't think was anybody's capacity, not even in the computer science department.
Yeah, it is. Having been a part of, like you said, when you were at, was it SFU? You had a room of 14 people that are working on pretty much programming the LMS system. While most programmers can probably make $1.20 or $1.30. In
so that's right. Yeah, we're not going to pay that, right?
Looking at an extra 14 staff members making $120,000 a year, which maybe is worth it in one place. It's probably not going to. It's a little bit out of our budget, and we don't have that underutilized PhDs sitting around twiddling their thumbs.
Exactly.
They're all working very hard doing important things. The ones that we have. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So so that's been my takeaway. Is I completely understand and very excited by the general idea of open source and user created. It's a beautiful world, but I think it's more than what we have the capacity to do here.
And my last question, other than if there are any additional comments that you want to make, is thinking about at that period of time, there was there was 2008 to 2009, and there was universities were building. There was like MOOCs were a concept, and there was a big question to you: how are you going to how much is online education, and in some ways it was seen as kind of a failed experiment. That like the promise was is that this philosophy teacher will now have 15,000 people signed up for your critical thinking course. The reality is that we found out, we discovered there's more value in face-to-face communications. We were maybe underestimating what that is. At the same time, here we are, 2018, the university does want to support more learners in our region, so that maybe there is some distance learning, needing to be flexible of people working asynchronously at different times. So where do you see that pendulum and that concept of online learning in university education, and where our university is likely to actually go, and how does this choice of LMS maybe affect that, those thoughts?
Yeah, this is really key, because you have to make the right step. So I think, especially in arts and humanities, right? So I was the chair for the last 3 years, and I was privy to a lot of the meetings, chairs meetings, and curricular committee meetings. And over the last 3 years, it's been this long argument over online, right? And it seems to be the case that arts and humanities wants to not do much with online. And that's and then you compare that with somebody like nursing, who seems to want to do almost all their content online. So for arts and humanities, I don't think they care that much at all whether campus can support a fully online course and do it at a high level, because they don't want to offer those courses in the first place. But I also think, so I'm not one of those people. I think that we need to think about offering 10 to 20% of our curriculum online, and that would be that's the right professional thing to do, I think. I know of a student that just dropped out of our program because we don't offer enough online courses, and he lives in Napa and wanted a philosophy degree, and we're like, well, philosophy is just not a thing you do online, and I think that was, it's kind of cruel to that particular person, right? So I think that we should be able to have a path for that, that kind of student. They're not the majority right now, but I think there's going to be more people just like that, right? There's going to be 2 or 3, 5, 10, right, and of our majors that are going to be in that boat.
What do you think about, do you think that the hybrid is a possible solution? I took one online course entirely online, and did find it to be a little bit maybe some types of information it's good for, and we don't necessarily use Zoom, there could be more meetings, but I actually found that there was a problem. You have different students, they all take it for the flexibility, but their schedules between them are even more of a mess.
Exactly.
So we'd have these group projects, and we'd literally have people on their lunch hour sneaking outside with their little hat on still, that they're trying to squeeze in 20 minutes, and I'm like, I know the rest of that time I'm not available.
Exactly.
I will be working, and I am not going to be able to do so. I think that I do think hybrid courses, where there is some of that connection. So do you feel like we've sort of evolved maybe as a university to say, so you can't really, a whole fully online asynchronous course has the promise of distance and flexibility for any students, but if half of the courses or 20% of the courses, you're still not going to be able to graduate, because 80% of your courses don't have that flexibility.
Exactly, right. And that's what happened, right? So I did offer this course. It's asynchronous. It's in the summer, right? This student took that course. It worked for him. He decided to sign up, become a major, and then he realized, well, no other course is offered that way, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a question that we're going to have to work on as an academic community going forward.
Yeah.
I felt like I do feel like that balance of like the hybrid classes where basically 50% of the time
Yeah.
you're
Right.
not, you can do a lot of significant and important learning asynchronous and
Right.
50% of the time actually having that connection of feedback. That was my online learning is very lonely. You have to be.
It is, yeah.
It's good for introverts who don't really want to spend a lot of time with people anyways.
Yep, that's right.
For the people with a big social need, it's not going to satisfy them.
Yeah,
so,
not at all. Right.
Yeah, so that I think is where the university is going with that, and that's a bigger picture that. But this LMS decision does sort of set us up for you know potentially you know growing those offerings, or you know how does it support a hybrid class?
Right.
Yeah, those are kind of my favorite
right.
balance between those things. But
I
you
agree,
need sort of robust online and I guess sometimes like online for adjunct professors teaching an online course gets paid differently also
right, it does,
than a face-to-face class. And it seems like you maybe should be paid more because there's more resources you have to build, but I don't think that's the direction it goes.
No.
You get paid a little bit less.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. Online courses is much more work because you're basically building a software product and it has to look right and links break and you're always fixing stuff.
You have to, and you can see with the nursing program that they do a lot to make the online experience work for you know, that sometimes they said that the most vulnerable students, the students that are most likely, they're the ones that have the biggest problem with the depersonalization that sometimes happens with online. They need most. And so just like you make your course accessible, they go through to try to make it good for everybody with similar types of measures. So.
You definitely have to think about all of that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being very generous with your time.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully can make a good decision here. Can I get rid of all this stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to end the recording.
Okay.
Let's see. Stop.